Okie doke. Well, let's get started. So I've got a little presentation for us today. I'm going to share my screen, I hope. And actually, I'm going to just double, if somebody, I will leave it. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a, a brief presentation, but I hope it'll be helpful. So the purpose of these Body Talk Business Booster Zooms is to give you support as you're growing your practice. And the truth is that you can look at it like growing your practice is like pretty simple in one respect. You learn how to do the thing and then tell people you do the thing and, and then do the thing. That is true. That is essentially what's involved in starting your practice. But then there's all these pieces and lots of places where people can get stuck. So my intention when I'm putting stuff together, ideas together for us to talk about in these booster Zooms is like, where do people get stuck? Where did I get stuck? I've been in practice since 2008, and I have basically made every mistake there is. I've just learned that I've learned through experience and through study and through little workshops, small and large, much like this one. So today we're going to talk about where do you put your practice. To introduce myself a little more formally, in case you haven't met me, my name is Robin Mayberry. I am a certified Body Talk practitioner, Parama Body Talk practitioner, massage therapist, and I have literally done thousands. I mean, I did the math once and I'm like, yeah, I hit the 10,000. Like I've done a lot of Body Talk, done a lot of Body Talk, and it's just from like just doing it, I've just been around. I've just been around for long enough and kept doing it for long enough. So I'm familiar with the system, let's put it that way, but I'm also familiar with all the different things it takes to deliver the system. So again, we're talking today about what goes into where you put it. So I wanted to start with why, like Simon Sinek says, start with why. Why does it matter where your location is going? I just want to make sure, I'm going to just double check. Okay, I want to make sure it was recording. Your location matters well, these are the reasons that I find the most important. I don't know if it's in any particular order, but to me, right away, a location reflects how seriously you take your work. So I'm going to share right off the bat with a little anecdote. So there's another modality that I like too. It's not Body Talk, but there's not that many practitioners. And so I was looking around, and this is just like a few months ago, and I found this gal and she was over on the west side, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll get a session with her. So I reach out to her, and it turns out she does not have anywhere to work. She's like, well, I'll come to your house. And I'm like, well, I'm in, I was like 2 hours away. And she's like, well, we can go to the park. I was like, I don't really want to go to the park. So, do you have a space of any kind? She's like, well, you can come to my house, but my kids are there, my dogs are there. See, that is what you do not want. So let's just start with that. And so I didn't book a session with her. I was like, well, I'll get back to you kind of thing. Just because, well, personally, because I didn't feel safe anymore. It's not so much like, something terrible was going to happen to me, but like, am I in good hands? And to me, that is what the location establishes. When somebody reaches out to you and they're like, hey, can I get together? So-and-so told me your work is cool and I'd like to book a session with you. And you're like, sure, this is where my office is. And we're going to talk about some options for where your office is or your space. When you have a designated space, when you can have people in that designated space, when people arrive at that designated space and it looks like a place where people actually do healing work and it looks like, tended to, it sends a message like this practitioner cares about what they're doing. And on the other hand, if you don't have a space or your space is all just crazy or it's just off-putting to your client, it just makes the whole session, it kind of takes the joy out of it. To me, when I'm offering a session, I really want to be offering a whole experience. They don't need to go on a cruise or anything, but they need to like come into my office and feel safe and get a session and just feel comfortable and the right temperature and, just that kind of stuff and just feel cared for. So that is like my focus when I'm thinking of location. I'm going to pause right here and say, these are my experiences and my point of view. So do as you will, but that's what I'm sharing with you, is what has worked for me and the way I see it. So professionalism, I think, is really is the big, the key point of why developing a good location you feel good about is important. Then the next thing, some of these are just a little bit more practical. And one is like this ease of booking, like this little anecdote I told you about this gal that with whom I did not book because it wasn't easy. I was like, what? I don't even know where to go and how far it's going to be. And like, what? If I'm going to make a haircut appointment, I just want to go, okay, that's where you are. And there's where I'll park. And now, there we go. And it's the same thing with BodyTalk. We want it to be just a clean appointment experience. So people are, okay, this is where you come. Again, just for ease. So that, oh, do you do this? Yes, I do. And I do it here. The getting in the zone is also, I think, really important. If I have moved around, I have offered my work in different ways and in different places. And personally, I find when I've got a designated spot where I do my work, it does something, whether it's the matrix or whether it's my neural pathways or whether it's just habit, I don't know. But if I know that this is where I do my work, my whatever the work is, there's something that like kicks on. So the getting in the zone is easier when you have a zone. You don't need, you can do BodyTalk from anywhere, from a moving car if you wish. But when you've got a space and you've got your posters and you've got your books and you got your charts and you've done, other people in this space, it just does make it easier. Like, oh, BodyTalk, that's what we're doing. And then the last element that I think is important, we're going to talk about whether or not to have your office in your house. That's going to cover that like kind of separately, I think next. But the work-life separation. So even if your space is in your house, again, we will talk about that shortly, going to work is really important. And especially I think when you do something like BodyTalk, that's a consciousness medicine where we're like in energy fields and changing our brain waves and, we're doing a lot of subtle work. It is really helpful to be able to be, here's my work, here's my life. Here I'm like, doing my chores, my everyday things, and now I'm leaving to go to work. So having that separation, that divide is just psychologically helpful, I think, and good for your longevity as a practitioner. Okay, so actually, I guess I was like, should we talk about being in your house first? You know what? We're going to talk about being in your house first. I'll go back to this other thing. I started with a place in my house. I feel like a lot of people start in there. So there's good sense. So I want to, so many people I find kind of start here that we're just going to focus on this specific thing for a little bit. I did. I know a lot of people who do. If you are lucky enough to have a living space where there's some spare space, then it makes sense, especially when you're getting started or when you're still like a student, you haven't been certified yet. Maybe you're not, charging, or you're not charging much yet, or you don't have a lot of clients. Anyway, when there's not a lot of financial, like before you've gotten the wheels going, it makes sense to think, hey, how about I do it in my spare room? So I don't like it. I did it myself. And then we just recently had some changes in our home, and my husband was like, why don't you just put the office in our house? And I was like, no, because I've already done this. And personally, yes, it saved money. Yes, it's convenient to have your space like right there at home. Those things are true. However, the things I ran into were that separation, that work-life separation, and essentially keeping this clean, dedicated spot just so that when your client arrives, it's like, bing, it looks like it's always existed just for your client to come and get a session. That's tricky in your house. I can do that in my office because when I leave, everything's all tidy. I'm not there. I'll be back to see another client. Nothing's getting messed up. But in your house, it's just like that, it happens. So if going with having your healing space in your home is the best bet for you, then there are some things to keep in mind. It is actually more difficult, is what I'm saying. It's cheaper and it's more location convenient, but it is more difficult. In order to create that space where a client feels like there's a dedicated space and there's like just this sense like you are doing nothing but doing this session. In order to have that, it's important. And I will say, like, I've been a practitioner and practiced out of my house. I have gone to people's houses and received sessions. And so it is like I've been the recipient and the practitioner this way. And I have found that to have a happy client and a happy practitioner, if you're going to be in your own space, in your own house, it has to be clean, has to stay clean. People do come at the last minute, or you forget about it, or you run right up to your, so you don't want to be like picking up it's just socks like with a client like knocking on the door. It has to be client ready when you're offering your session. I mean, these are ideals, but I'll say them. When you're offering your session, it's got to be quiet. You can't have the TV going. You can't have the dog. I mean, you can, but it's distracting if the dogs are barking and the TV's going, and you hear your kids in the other room and like they're fighting and stuff like. I've been a client where all these things, and it's like, what's happening out there? Do you need to deal with that? And that's the family life. I think is the biggest detriment actually of if you have a family and you're working out of your home. Families need you. So I have been in the position where I'm in the middle of a session, and especially recently where I was working from home I was working remotely from home. So I was doing it from Zoom, but there were a couple different times where like my family needed me, but I was in the middle of a session. If I'm in my office, I don't know they need me. Like, no problem, I'll deal with it when I come out of the session because I don't know that you're looking for me. But if I'm at home and, my kids are like, oh, are you busy? Well, now I know you're looking for me. And part of my brain is, so if you're going to work out of your own home, it's just a thing to consider. Even a considerate family, and my family is, they just have their needs and they're living their life. And if you're nearby and your mom, which many of our people in our group experience, it can divide your energies. And then the last thing, I think this is a nice to have, but I also think as a client, like if I were to ever permanently put a space in my home, and I have known people who do have spaces in their home, if it works, and I have seen it work, it is clean, it is quiet, it is separate from family life, and it feels separate. So the client can go to the bathroom and without it feeling like, they're stepping over someone's towels. The client can park somewhere. The client can like come into an entrance where they're not encountering a whole like family situation. So like Vanessa has your situation, Vanessa has her office right by the door. So the clients can just walk right in and it feels like, okay, it feels like a clinic. But if you've got to wander them all the way through the house, it's just a different feeling, maybe someone likes that feeling. But these are things to consider. Essentially, I guess my argument is your location, your space for your practice should be dedicated to your practice. When you're in that space, you're doing BodyTalk, or assuming, that's what we're talking about here. So when you're in there, you're doing your BodyTalk sessions and you're not doing anything else. And it really allows for the clients, it's much more comfortable for the clients, and we can just get into the work much more easily. Like people feel, okay, I'm here, I'm doing this is what we're doing. And if in the meantime, if you can't have that, if that's not possible for you, if this is like just dreaming that I'm talking about, then just know it's a way to get started. It's better to have an office in or a space, a table set up in your spare room that you can see clients, and it's better to have that than nothing. If that's all you got, then that's all you got. Do what you can to keep it clean, quiet, separated, and professional feeling. But if that's all you have, then, it's better than nothing. But I'm going to encourage you as soon as you can to get into a space. I feel like I just need to say again, for some people, having a space works. I can think of, I'm thinking of Vanessa. I know Ellen just set up a space, like a clinic on your property. Like for some people this works. And Karen, I know that you're putting something together. So I'm not saying never, but I'm saying take it seriously. If you must be in your own space, then make sure that space is separate to the best of your ability. That's my recommendation. That said, personally, I worked out of a back bedroom for like the first 3 months of my practice. I got my certification. The very first time I had a paying client, it was in the bedroom I'm actually in right now. That's my home office now. And it was so awkward. I just didn't like it. I just felt very like I felt invaded. So maybe that's personal. Um, Personally, yeah, it didn't work for me. And so from that point of view, personally, just very quickly, I was like, I need a space. I need my own space. And so actually, I live in a town where there are, it's like everywhere, and like rents are crazy. And so again, I understand, if you're not making any money yet, or you're not making very much money yet, that's a big investment to like get into a place with a lease and all this stuff like that. So, my suggestion, if you're like, okay, I'm starting my practice, or I'm growing my practice, and I've grown out of my back bedroom or what have you, or I really want to have this thing, but I don't want to pay 2 grand a month. Actually, the most I've ever paid was a little over 1,000 a month. And let me tell you, that hurt me. That hurt I realize it's all different everywhere that we are, but in Ellensburg prices, that was pretty steep. Um, but we have options. We don't need to just rent our own place with a lease and all this kind of stuff. So a strong recommendation I have, you might have thought of this, is sharing a space. But I just did this actually. So yeah, we think of like having a roommate for our space, or, getting a suite with two little small rooms and you can split the rent and that kind of stuff. I mean, I feel like that's pretty standard idea. But I have had good success sharing, like kind of squatting and somebody's using it when they're not there. And so that's a thought I wanted to bring to your attention. So I did do this this past spring. I had the super spendy office, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was really a beautiful office, truly. It was hard to leave it. But I thought I was going to be I decided to try a remote option, which we will talk about too. I was like, I'm going to be location independent. I'm going to do everything remote. Like some of my favorite instructors, BodyTalk instructors do that. I'm going to do that. Turns out I didn't like that either. I learned, I learned through doing. But I had a few people that really were not going to translate to the online experience. And so there's a local place here in town, and that it was mostly massage therapists. And I just went in and asked, like, hey, can I use your space like on Mondays or Thursdays or whatever it is when nobody's in? There was a couple different offices, and it was great. It was great. We made a little arrangement. I paid, well, it was going to be by the hour, but then we just came up with a flat rate and times I would be there, so they expected it, and it was great. It was really a win-win all around. So that's the kind of like a little bit. I mean, it's like way outside of the box, but not every single space in town is occupied 24 hours a day. There a lot of times, people don't want to, once you've got your practice going, you don't want to work on weekends. Well, if you're getting going, go and work a Saturday, and there might be Saturday spaces open. Yeah, so renting by the hour, or renting by the day, or renting, actually splitting a room. So I've seen people do that, and actually I've done that, where, somebody has it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then someone has it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that just keeps rents down. So you can do your thing without like panicking and being like, I have to have 800, clients, or I'm gonna go broke. Like that's not, you don't want that vibe. You want to enjoy your space and not feel like you're breaking the bank for it. So sharing. The other thing is asking, like, that seems like a no-brainer, but I'm kind of surprised sometimes how much people don't want to ask. I know a lot of massage therapists, and it happens with some regularity that I'll find out that people are looking for a space, but they're not actually asking anybody. And I'll be like, how long have you been looking? Oh, and it's like, what do you, they're just like looking online or something. It's like, you gotta ask people. People are still people. So if you're looking for a space to work out of, allow me to encourage you, post it on Facebook, or ask people, or ask other practitioners, like, do you know anybody? I need a space. Do you know anybody? Do you know anything, something opening up or whatever? It's less intimidating to just look on Craigslist, but it's not very effective. I have found, and I'm, believe it or not, actually a shy person. I know it does not look like it, but it is true. And I have absolutely had amazing success with just connecting with a handful of people and networking essentially. So ask about when you're ready to get an affordable space, ask about it. And then this get creative thing, I do know people, and you probably do too, who have done like all kinds of stuff. So I'm thinking of somebody, I know someone that has a metaphysical store in the next town over, and there's like a little space in the back, and she rents it out to like there's a Reiki person and a tarot person and da da da. Da. So that like that sort of thing, you know. In the natural food store here in town, they had a little space in the back. Like companion businesses can be surprisingly open to like, okay, well, we got a space, you know. So just opening your idea box to these kinds of possibilities. I've seen the first time I ever got Reiki, which was kind of, I think maybe even the first energy medicine that I ever got, was in the back room of a natural food store. And the lady had it like all set up all nice with the plants and the lights and the and I mean, it was lovely. It was a lovely little spot. And you know, it was a solution. So just things to think about down the road when you got 80 bazillion clients and you're booked way out, then you can pick whatever space you want. But when you're getting started, these are just some ideas. And you can do both. You really can do both. You can be like, on Thursdays, I do it in this office, and that's where I see new clients that I don't know who they are yet, and I don't want to tell them where I live because I don't know them yet. And then on other days, you know, my more familiar clients, I have a space in my house. Like you can do that kind of thing too. But again, our theme here is dedicated space. So if you have two spaces, you got to have two massage tables and set it up in two different places. But you know, you can do it. You can do it. So there's our back bedroom. The third thing I wanted to touch on for the getting started in your location is the idea of the location independent. So no location. I did want to touch on this because I just personally tried it out. So share my experience. Again, saying it seems like other people have a different experience with this. I didn't like it, but that's me. I mean, I do still do distance work with people who live too far away to see me. But I was like, even people who live down the street, I was making them see me on Zoom because I got, you know, I let my space go. So I was like, no, I'm all online now. I'm all virtual. And I had my reasons. But I thought it was going to be different than it was. I really kind of I live and learn. That's again, that's my method for getting through life. But some things to bring to your attention. If you want to live in a van, you want to do the van life, you don't want to have an office, you want to be able to do your body talk virtually from any beach, which was kind of what I was thinking. I forgot that I have a husband and he doesn't want to live in a van at the beach, but you know, just remember that too. Your van life dream might need to get run by other people. However, if you decide to go with this remote, no location option, just a few things to keep in mind is I found it very helpful that I already had a client base. I lost a lot of clients when I made that change because just energy medicine is strange. Consciousness medicine is stranger, and consciousness medicine over the phone is stranger yet. So I kind of whittled down the people who like knew who I was, knew what I was doing, knew what to expect from BodyTalk. Like I did better with that group. If I were brand new and didn't have already some people that I'd been working with for a long time, I think it really would have been difficult. So just to keep that in mind, if you decide to go location independent, it's going to be a little more, probably a longer sales path to help people understand what it is you're offering. And then your technology really matters. If you're going to be on the phone or on Zoom or Teams or what have you, some kind of video setup, you need to have your internet, you need to have your equipment because there's nothing more boneheaded than being like, oh, I can't mess it. You know, again, it's all about the trust, building trust with your client. And these setting up the circumstances so that you can work together should be a non-issue. I mean, things happen, you know, but troubleshoot as much as you possibly can. Things do still happen, but they happen everywhere. So in any situation, I had an office where the roof fell in, the ceiling fell in. So, you know, things happen. And sometimes you can't help it, but you can try. But keep in mind, my client feedback was pretty consistent. They did not my clients didn't like it. They just were like, well, it's all right. It's not really the same. And I felt the same way. So distance clients, like, what are you going to do? It's not the same, but they live, hours or on the other side of the country away. So you got to deal with it. But people that could see me in person and had seen me in person or wanted to see me in person really felt the difference. And so that's what I experienced. However, if you're between spaces or you're living your van life down at the beach, you absolutely can have the location independent strategy. Just be aware it is not the same as having an in-person practice. It is a different, and it just feels different. So, as you'd expect. I mean, it's different to be in a room with somebody than it is to be on screen with somebody. It just is different. So just know that. I guess I'm saying this. I had a whole story in my head about how cool I was going to be because I was going to just be doing all my stuff on Zoom. I don't know. I cook up stories in my head. So if you've got that story, just know it can be something you don't expect. Okay. And my last thing I just want to cover, and we have talked about it to a certain extent. John Veltheim there used to be a video out where he talked about practice building, and he had a whole little segment where he talked about keeping up your office. And at the time I was like, well, yeah, but since then, since being in practice for a long time and just being around and getting a million sessions, I have found like, no, this is true. Like people are people, but these things are important. And shall I say again, as a client, to feel like you're being taken care of, these things really need to be squared away. So your space needs to be, wherever it is, it needs to be clean. It needs to be as comfortable as you can make it. Because, I mean, I'm fussy. And if I'm going to go get a session, I want it to be the right temperature. I want it to be a puffy table. I want it to be like, there's nice music. Like I am fussy. So I sort of expect my clients to be fussy too. And I try to meet their needs. Keeping it neutral, that's a John idea. And if he did share this anecdote about a guy that came, a new BodyTalk practitioner that came to him, and he was struggling and couldn't get any clients. This is like from John's video from way back when. But this guy is struggling. Like, John, I can't get any clients. And John was like, well, yeah, because the guy was wearing like a caftan and just had he smelled like incense, and he was just floating around. And John was like, yeah, nobody's going to come and see you. Like, you have to deliver some professionalism here. So the neutrality, I mean, I guess you could do whatever you want, but if you're building your practice, it doesn't hurt to just have this professional. So professional is generally neutral. It's like, we're not going to get too excited about personalities here. We've got a job to do. It's kind of the flavor. And the smells thing, John brought that. Well, he also didn't play music, he said, and I do. I remember him saying that it can trigger active memories, or it can actually suppress active memories to have music on. Personally, I hate silence, so I'm just taking my chances with the active memories. That's just a personal option. But keep in mind, the right music. I have played the wrong music, and I've had people go, what's the music? So if you're going to do music, you might have to adjust. And the smells is the same thing. And actually, the space that I'm working out of right now, there's a number of the practitioners use essential oils. So there can be some pretty strong smells, which is unusual for me over the years. I haven't really had that before, but I'm like, well, nobody's really freaked out about it. But keep in mind, there are those clients who are sensitive to smells, and especially in our line of work where we work with the people who have chronic, mysterious things. Just keep in mind that strong sensory things can be an issue for your clients. If you can help it. You can't always. And my last thought, I feel like I've circled around, but I will say again, you're making an oasis for your client. You're making an experience for your client. You're making a little nest that they're going to come into. They're coming to you. They're feeling vulnerable. They've got something going on. They're not feeling 100%. They feel like no matter how much we educate them, they usually feel like they need something to be fixed. So they feel a little off. They come to see you is often the situation. And when they come into a space that's clean and nice and comfortable, and it's a nice temperature and the light's nice and it's got maybe some plants or whatever, just a feeling like it's been cared for, that it sets you up for your person to know they're going to be cared for. You're going to take care of them because you have already created this whole beautiful environment and it's ready for them. And it just gets you off on the right foot. And it also sends the client out on the right foot, and they're more, the likelihood that somebody's going to rebook when the whole experience was positive is much higher. So I will say I have had experiences where I liked the service but didn't like where it was, and I don't go back. There's a massage therapist here in town that did a great massage, but it was above an automotive shop. And then I was like, is this gonna work? And she's like, oh, it didn't. It just didn't for me. So again, am I fussy? Uh-huh. But are you gonna have clients, some of them might not care, but you do for the ones who do, they'll appreciate it. And you'll appreciate it. You gotta be in there. So I believe those are my thoughts. We'll just kind of sum it up. I didn't get too heavy into this, but the way that you choose your location and decorate your location and maintain your location, your space, your practice space, reflects your practice. It reflects, I care about what I'm doing. I'm prioritizing what I'm doing. I care about the people that I'm working with. Like when you take the time to set up something reasonable and nice, and it doesn't have to be Taj Mahal, but well cared for, it reflects like I am serious about what I'm doing. Wherever you are, it's got to be clean, it's got to be quiet, it's got to be private for your client and for you to feel safe. And my final thought is that when you find a space that you like and you feel good about and you're happy telling people about it, it does help you grow your practice because you're confident saying like, oh yeah, I got a space right downtown here, da da da, it's over to, or oh yeah, I got a space in my house, it's all ready, da da da, whatever. But when you feel like, yeah, it's ready for you, come on in, when do you want to book? That reflects. And when your clients are asking you, how do I get in to see you? You're not fumbling over, well, I don't really have a place, I mean, that's doom. Don't doom. Have a space, have a place ready, build it, and they will come. They do come. People are looking for you. And what you're doing is creating a space for them to find you and to enjoy your work. Okay, so I will just finish up by saying, if you're not already, please do consider becoming a member at Pacific Northwest Body Talk. So our website is pnwbodytalk.com, this organization that we're building. So we would love to have you, and we would love to share more of your growth experiences. And I'm going to close